The Michaelmas daisy, aka a richly dressed, dainty, petaled flower with a golden eye. Small in size, it is wise, for it grows when others die. The last pollen of the season, tasty feast for bees. It brings the viewer to their knees, a bevy of purple, a myriad of blooms, splendid abreast the goldenrod, living reciprocity, manifesting virtues, love, wisdom, faith, color, a natural star. September 29th is Michaelmas, the feast of St. Michael and all angels. The story is Archangel Michael, at the height of a cosmic and epic confrontation between the forces of good and the forces of evil. It is a cinematographer's bounty of vast scenes of war and conflict, fire and smoke, dragons and winged beasts, armies traversing the heavens and the earth. It is a time of woe and fear. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae, was interviewed on CBC Radio during this past week. Simply put, he said, "It's a very tough time in the world." We know. We have seen or heard the news of the rise of aggression and armed conflict throughout the world. Scenes of war and conflict, fire and destruction, armies traversing high and low, a time of woe and fear. A time wherein conflict-ravaged areas exponentially expand, devouring cities and peoples, destroying nations. Yet Ambassador Rae did not leave the interview with listeners mired in the tough times. He highlighted the work that the United Nations has done and is accomplishing. To begin, the dragons of the world are still sitting at the table and talking. Rae talked about the United Nations work reducing and forgiving debt, work in development, particularly in impoverished areas, and the great work, teamwork, combating gang presence and violence in Haiti. Optimistic despite the suffering and the troubles of the world, Rae shared what I call his star virtue for moving forward in troubled times. We need to remain persistent. The apocalyptic prophet Daniel lived at a time when, simply put, it was a very tough time in the world. Ancient Near East histories before Daniel's time recorded war after war and recounted a land full of gods, where each nation ascribed to a god. The Assyrian conquest, as recorded in 2 Kings, asks if any nation's god could deliver the nation from the strong hand of Assyria. There was an understanding that the gods participated in war, comprising of cosmic and epic confrontations between them and mirroring their battles in earthly realms. By Daniel's time, it was no longer gods who waged war, but princes, who were powerful patron angels. Wars played out between nations, patron angels, and it affected people on earth. Chapter 10 of Daniel records the Persian period and the conquest of the kings who followed the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia. Chapter 11 of Daniel accurately records Hellenistic history, including in verse 11 reference to Alexander the Great. This part of Daniel was written before 163 BCE and the death of Antiochus IV, which was prophesied as the prelude to the end of the world. The apocalyptic text of Daniel was written to a people in the path of dragons. in a time of great oppression, revolt, riots, and civil war. A time where high priests were removed, Jewish religion was outlawed, and Zeus, along with the sacrificing of pigs, was added to the temple in Jerusalem. Optimistic despite the suffering and the trouble of the world, Daniel shared hope. At that time, Michael, the great prince, shall rise. At that time, your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars, forever and ever. This text is the first writing of resurrection in the Bible, and a reference to the book of life. Many, not all, rise. Some rise to everlasting life, and some to eternal contempt. Commentaries point out that only the very good and the very bad rise, not everyone. There's an additional reflection that the wise shall shine like the stars, implying that the person is a companion of the angels. The time of writing of Daniel, his listeners would have been familiar with Greek legends. One legend was a story espousing beauty amidst the common, where the starry maid, Astrakia, cried when she noticed there were no stars upon the earth. Her tears fell to the earth and sprouted as flowers that look like stars, the autumn flower we know as asters. 250 years after Daniel, the apocalyptic writer of Revelation repurposed the language and images from the book of Daniel to speak to some in the Jewish diaspora, people who had fled the first Jewish revolt when the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, and congregated with others in the 7 churches of Asia Minor, people who were heavily persecuted under the ruthless, cruel, tyrannical reign of the Roman Emperor Domitian. A war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back but were defeated, and there was no longer place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down. The outcome of the war in heaven was the reason for the persecution and the oppression of believers on earth. But yet, the optimism in the text is a voice that proclaimed, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of our comrades has been thrown down." Apocalyptic texts are arrangements of extremes layered upon each other, written when it's a very tough time in the world. The texts are filled with utopian language of the promise of hope amidst the chaos of suffering and oppression, war and conflict and judgment that separates the righteous and the wicked. Within the apocalyptic imagery, there is hope for restoration. Apocalyptic texts were forefront in my mind when CBC Radio interviewed philosopher Todd May, talking about his book, Should We Go Extinct? A Philosophical Dilemma of Our Unbearable Times. In an apocalyptic sort of way, he asks human beings to face this question. May posits that humans have lots to offer, but humans also cause lots of destruction. How does the scale of value balance out? While contributing value to the world by producing and infusing large degrees of happiness, meaningfulness, and creating and appreciating art and science and beauty, and the richness of the planet, while having vision for the future and birthing culture and gratitude, humans generate and devise egregious amounts of cruelty, suffering, and devastation. In his opinion, one need only consider factory farming and deforestation to get the point. Does human contribution of good into the world balance the moral scale of the evil perpetrated by humans? His apocalyptic colored philosophy ends with the hope of focused minds that open us to possibilities, a willingness to try to make human existence more justifiable. The stars will be those who embrace change and generate virtue while living in and addressing the sufferings and the struggles of the world. Apocalyptic texts resonate when the world is, well, like it is now. Peril and forces beyond our control have humans searching for something. Explanations, justifications, a long view that this shall pass, and glimpses of words, actions, or stories that kindle hope. Humans open their understanding to the possibilities of that which we do not see. Heaven and hell, angels and demons, cosmic chaos and creator, and the possibility of contributing value to a world yet to be. The writer of Daniel, the writer of Revelation, Ambassador Ray, Todd May, describe what was, is, and is yet to be. All commend us to be persistent, wise, meaning engaged in the struggle to balance out fear and peril with infusions of hope, appreciation, beauty, value, and at all times protesting the forces that defy God, the devil, and all empty promises. In Daniel, the fullness of promise is that those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. In the end, God's tears shed in response to conflict in the realm of angels, in protest to the struggles and the suffering of the world. Tears fallen through the heavens to the earth, stars. Asters of purple wisdom, manifesting virtues of love, faith, shining in apocalyptic brightness. May we be bathed in God's tears, be wise, and lead many to righteousness. Persistent, living reciprocity, stars, forever and ever. Purple asters.